We, yeah, so if you don't join live, you don't get to hear the beautiful prayer that we share, at least not so far. If you join live, you get to hear that beautiful prayer. We just had a beautiful prayer and feel really centered and grounded together. And I was just expressing a lot of appreciation for the core group that's joining us live and how this kind of synergy and the coherence and the cohesiveness that we have that we're building week by week, and how that's kind of like the center of the wheel and it kind of expands out for new people that come in and join us and naturally resonate. And it feels like we're doing something pretty special. I'm getting a lot of good feedback from people that not only tuning in live, but are listening to the replay. A lot of good feedback from people. People are really appreciating, starting to see like, hey, this is really unique, and this is really something that like I haven't seen done before in this kind of a way, and it's really special. And um, just given the sense of appreciation and approval for what we're doing. So that feels really good. It feels good to have a good group here tonight, and I'm excited to dive in. So we have the chat box. You can share, you can write in things, reflections, and oh, we have 12 people here live. What a auspicious number. So you can share in the chat box. You can raise your hand if you want to comment, share a reflection. Um, I have a Patreon page. Let me put that in the chat actually. It needs a little work. I need some time to work on it a little bit, make it a little more aesthetically pleasing. But we have a Patreon page to support the circle on a monthly basis. You can also use Venmo, and then we have the Eventbrite as well. So ways to help out and support. Um, the group is really the intention is really simple. It's about supporting humanity to transcend suffering. It's really that's what it's about. So everything that we're doing is under that umbrella, if you will, and exploring that together and exploring um, collectively how do we do that for ourselves individually and how do we do that for the whole, right? So um, just a couple other announcements before we get into the topic tonight. So we have a 1 day retreat. The first one we're going to do at our place, which is 6 acres in Southwest Virginia. A lot of the people I'm seeing here are already committed to attending. So great chance opportunity to connect with each other in person and share time together. I'll see if I can get the link up for that as well to register for that. We're looking forward to that. And then we have the New Year's, which become like an annual thing at Black Mountain, North Carolina, Christ Mountain Retreat Center. We got the New Year's retreat. So excited to start bringing in the New Year. It's like, oh my God, it's mid-September already. We're getting close now. So excited to bring in the New Year with everybody and just kind of basically if you're used to like, getting smashed and trashed and, crashed, whatever other words people use. This is like a different intention to come in and really come in to really start the new year strong and come in with people that are really the intention of um, to actualize themselves and realize themselves in a more deeper way and just make this coming year, the best year yet, and to kind of reflect on the previous year as well, and what are the lessons that we can learn, and what are the things that we can carry forward into this coming year, what are the things we can let go of, and so forth. So that's been a really special thing that I'm really happy that we have that going. And I felt like we brought in, we kind of bring in the midnight hour, the 20, which will be 2025 in this really kind of special way last year. It felt like, and I have really fond memories of that right now, thinking of you guys, a lot of you guys that were there and how we shared that. So that feels really special. And I'm looking forward to that as well. So yeah, we're going to talk about addiction tonight and how to address it. So kind of a big topic and feels like important and valuable. And I know people here have experiences with transcending addiction, so there'll be a chance for anyone who likes to share their experience and their advice, their wisdom, anybody to share any um, questions they have or things they're inquiring about on the subject. So I guess we could define what addiction is, right? I think that's the first thing is what is addiction? And it feels like addiction is something that you're doing repetitively, unconsciously that has negative effects, that's affecting you negatively in your life. It feels like there's probably multiple ways to define it, right? But there's things that you do repetitively that are you're feeling positive effects from. So you don't feel like you don't even think of it as being like an addictive thing, but something that you wish you could stop or you kind of want to stop and you see how it's hurting you in your life and you can't make a change, right? Then it's like, well, I must be addicted to this, right? So I think that's what we're talking about. And there's so many different kinds of addictions. It's kind of fascinating, actually, how many different kinds of addictions there are. So I just made notes of some of them, and we can add more if you think of more. There's food addictions, and then kind of subcategories, all kinds of subcategories of different kinds of food addictions, like sugar. People are addicted to sugar. There's alcohol addiction. There's caffeine addiction. There's a whole wide, big range of drug addictions. There's illegal drugs that people are addicted to. There's legal drugs that people are addicted to. A lot of the legal ones are more damaging than the illegal ones. So just keep that in mind, that there's a full range of all different kinds of drugs that people become addicted to. Um, this includes plant medicine, by the way. People get addicted to so-called plant medicine, psychedelics. There's porn addiction, video game addiction, shopping addiction, social media addiction, all kinds of different behavioral addictions. Like some of these are just like things that are could be like peculiar or unusual or unique to um, you or unique to a specific person. But there's a whole bunch of different kind of behavioral addictions that people have. And then there's like kind of this interesting realm of addicted to certain kinds of thinking, right? Like, for example, being addicted to negative thinking, um, emotional addictions, being addicted to certain kinds of emotions. So those are just some examples, and there's more too, right? But there's just like a lot of different kinds of things that we could become addicted to. And then the question is, well, why? What is the reason for these addictions? And I think it's pretty simple. Like the reason for the addiction is because it's actually meeting a need for us. It's addressing something, a need that we have. And I'd say there's a couple prominent ones on reflecting upon this and working with people and coaching and so forth. The need to relax is a big one. So, or the need to kind of suppress the pain or numb the pain, escape the pain is big. So a lot of things people go to to relax, to relieve anxiety, to escape the pain, to numb the pain. Probably most things are around that realm, right? And then there could be another one where it's like sort of the opposite of the need for stimulation, the need to get energized, the need to escape the kind of this kind of like incessant boredom. So there can be an addiction that comes around that too, or other things. There could be other needs too. But the point is like there is a need. It's not like it's just like you're insane or you're crazy. It's like there's a very specific need that's there to be addressed. And there's something, whether it's an external substance or it's a behavioral pattern or it's whatever it is, it's like it's being used to to meet the need. So it can be valuable to kind of determine like what is that need that's being met through the for example, um, alcohol. A primary need there would be to kind of numb yourself to sort of if there's anxiety, social anxiety, or things you're kind of wanting to um, quiet internally. alcohol can be a way that people use to do that. So then it's like, well, what's the problem? It's helping you out. What's the problem, right? And I think there's a couple of things that become problematic. The probably the one of the biggest things is you're not getting to the source of the issue. You know, it's like a band-aid. You know, you're numbing yourself so it works for like a few hours, but then so let's take alcohol, for example. You're numbing yourself so it works for a few hours, and then the next day you feel like you're hungover and you feel terrible. And so those are the side effects. And then it can be like, oh, but what did I do last night? Why did I say that to that person? Why did I do that? You know, it's like these kind of things. Um, uh, so there's like the negative side effects that happen, and you're never getting to the root of the problem because you keep using um, these these addictions as a substitute to numb the symptom. You know, so the symptom is actually there to point you in the right direction to address the deeper level of what's happening, and we're avoiding that through these various addictions. And so I think as we start in this spiritual journey and we deepen on the spiritual journey, there that realization becomes more and more prominent, you know, and it kind of comes into your face more, and it kind of almost becomes like a choice, you know, of like what do you really want? What's what's most important here? And an interesting thing about this journey, you know, we've been talking about God and the intention to come into union with God, come into union with Christ. We could call it enlightenment, self-realization, um, God consciousness. You call it a lot of different things, but one thing that I have heard it called is spiritual liberation, which is a really great term because it's like the ultimate freedom. You know, it's like the most profound freedom, which is an inner freedom. Because if it's an external freedom, that means you could lose it, which means you're not really free, you know, on the deepest level. So this is like an inner freedom where you're free on the consciousness level. And the only way to truly be free is to have no addictions, because any addiction you have means you're not free, right? So the only way to truly be free is to break free of all addictions. And as you go on this journey, it's like breaking free of any and all addictions is to be fully available to God. And the more you come into this journey, it's like it becomes more clear. See, because first it's like conceptual, or like someone's telling you something in church and it sounds scary and they make you afraid. And like you do stuff because you're afraid, or you do stuff because you don't want to go to hell or something bad's going to happen. But none of that is like the real thing. Um, but when you start to touch the real thing, which is like the source point of all creation, which is this immense love, you know, this immense unconditional love, which is what we were created from, what we were birthed out of, then it's like, wow, you know, whoa, this is the greatest high there is. Like God is the greatest high there is. You know, everything else is like, you know, it's like trying to hold a candle up to the sun. It's like there's no comparison, you know. And so like the more you touch this, you taste this, you feel this, um, the more you just realize that you found something greater. And I think that's the key to breaking the any addiction, is you have to find something greater. Because if you don't find something greater, then there's no then why would you break the addiction? That's the best you can do. So it's like just do the best you can do. Like alcohol is the best you can do, so just do that. You're in a lot of pain, you're suffering, just drink it away, right? Um, but if you find something greater that has no side effects and is you know, a gazillion times greater high, and feels real and true and um, unconditional and ever present, you know, eternal, timeless, then you give yourself to that. And that's, the great God is the greatest. God is the great addiction buster. God will bust all addictions. It's amazing listening to the stories of people that um, I never personally had a serious drug addiction, but to listen to the stories of people that have had serious drug addictions, and um, through their relationship with God or through the relationship with Jesus, have like just completely transcended their drug addictions. So many people. And I think the 12-step program is basically, it's not considered a religious program or a spiritual program, but it essentially is a spiritual program. You know, it's essentially you give up the addiction by giving yourself, by surrendering to God, giving yourself to God instead. And so that, when you find that, then you just devote yourself to that, and you start resonating with other people that are devoting themselves to that, and these addictions just start to kind of fall away, right? So one more thing I'll share about this, and then open it up to you guys, is probably the number one thing people do that's wrong is something like alcohol. They'll say like, okay, I'm gonna stop this addiction. So I'm gonna think about not drinking. I don't want to drink. 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 It's never gonna work. Um, you have to instead of focusing on the thing you don't want, you focus on the greater thing. And anytime you focus on the thing you don't want, you're just going to expand it more and more. This is why I was mentioned earlier. It's such a, like, there's so many profound teachings in the Bible, like when Jesus says, do not resist evil. So at first you're like, what? Huh? I don't get it. You know?
Mm.
But then it's like, oh yeah, if I resist, whatever I resist persists and grows stronger.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's funny because like these whole law of attraction teachings. Um, a lot of the Christians like don't they think they're like devilish or they're demonic or something, or I don't know what they think, but they don't like them. And then a lot of the law of attraction people they don't buy with Christianity. But then I'm like going through Jesus' teachings, I'm like, this is the exact same thing. He's saying it's all the same. It's different languaging, but it's like the same truths are all there. It's like what you think about expands, what you give your attention to grows. Um, so like just kind of realizing that it's like realizing the power of the mind and how to use the mind and how to like how the tool it is, like the technology God gave us to focus our attention on something, and then it's like kind of like driving a car. Wherever you're looking, you're going to go in that direction. So like in our lives, like wherever we're looking, we're going to go in that direction. So we don't go like, oh, I don't want to go that way. I don't. It's like you're going to crash the car. You gotta look at where you want to go, not where you don't want to go. So that's the biggest thing I see with addiction is like you don't look at the thing you don't want to do. It's what happens is like it's not even in your consciousness anymore. It may like occasionally pop up, that's possible. But then you just kind of observe it, and you're not vibrating. You're not in the vibrational resonance with that anymore. Um, so an example for me is where we were just staying with my parents here, and lots of like ultra processed desserts around, constantly. And just had no desire. Like they just vibrationally just not resonant. It wasn't even an impulse. It wasn't even like, oh my God, I wish I could have that. It was like, ugh, you know, not not interested. And it's kind of becomes like that with everything. It's like the vibration that you're at, you attract that back to you. And so the more we raise our vibration, we're just become interested in different things, and certain things we're not interested in. And that journey just continues, on and on. But wanting to focus on things we don't like, things we don't want, people we don't like, things we don't want, places we don't like that just keeps you fixated. It keeps you tied to those things. So it's just really important to just focus on what you want, not on what you don't want, where you're going, not on where you're not going, what you want to create, not on what you don't want to create. And what you want to create ultimately is to be in communion with God and to be that living expression. And that is the greatest high, which is all natural, which is which our natural essence is. Like we're already, it's already who and what we are. So it's kind of like just realizing that, and there's ways to realize that deeper, which we can get into. But I'll just pause there and give a chance for you guys to open up to you guys and share reflections, questions, comments, thoughts.
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, so as many of you guys know, I feel like I'm a recovered drug user. I was, yeah, I won't get into the whole story, but I've just like really, like even this week, like really been just stepping into the realization that, like what I'm wanting to step into as far as helping other people and, um, going back into my journey and kind of documenting where the transformation took place and um, realizing that at some point there was this great shift, like in my mind, in my body, in my soul. And at the time, I didn't even really. I had, I guess, what felt like and what people would call like religious trauma from the my religious experiences as a kid that just did not resonate, um, and didn't even really couldn't even really say the word God comfortably. I used to use other words to describe the great creator. I felt a connection to that, and realizing now that was God, like pulling me out of that place and totally shifting my frequency, my reality, my vibration, and it became um, something just like you're talking about, Brian. Like I didn't even want, just like the sugary desserts. Like it wasn't an option. There was only one way forward, and it was like full speed ahead. So there was a major shift that took place in my whole self, my soul, my body, my mind, um, and I came to a place where there was no more using drugs. It was like face face the battle through this, like the withdrawals and the just all the horrible stuff that came along with coming off of 160 milligrams of methadone. And now realizing that was God, that was a connection that I was developing with God, and realizing the power in that, just to switch it, just to uh, flip the switch. And I saw it before I even experienced it. Um, like I don't know if like a vision is the right word, but it was more of like a feeling. I felt like there was a light switch, and I kind of saw it in my mind, in my head, that I could just shut off, and um, really just like that, quite literally, the switch was flipped off, and the motivation and inspiration to come out on the other side was all of a sudden there, and just an amazing experience. And I can't wait to really dive in more to my personal experience and document this and, write about it and share about it and just like figure it all out. Cause it seems like it happened so quick. Here it is like 5 years later when I first began this story and, or this journey. And it feels like it's happened in an instant. That's another amazing thing, I think, with like the power of God and the connection with Christ, through Christ to God, is the ability to it wasn't a struggle. It wasn't a hard journey to go through. I mean, there were struggles, and it's hard to explain, I guess. But just amazing grace, I guess is what I'll say, and just leave it at that. And
How
just,
sweet the sound.
yeah, man, shoo, God, I once was lost, but now I'm found.
Right.
Woo. Thank you, thank you,
Amen.
thank you. Um,
So here's
Going back
an
to, yeah.
interesting like question that you and we talk about a lot is what was it that made you think that it was possible for you to live a different life? You know, where a lot of people they don't think it's possible, so they never get there.
Hmm.
I think I think thinking back to the beginning days of my journey with you, was you kind of asking me if anything's possible. Like, don't think about the limitations,
Right.
like,
Right.
and finding a vision
If
of
anything's
where you want
possible,
to
what do
go.
you want to create?
Yeah. So then I started, at first that was a really, I didn't even understand the question. Um, and then the more that we talked about it and the more that you were telling me, like, let go of the limitations, don't think about how you get there, just
Yep.
find that place.
Yep.
And I think for me it was finding that place. And actually I experienced a physical experience in myself, in my soul, in my mind, and I saw myself in a higher place. And I stopped worrying about how to get there, um, because I had tried to come off methadone before, and it felt like such a daunting how. Like, how I can't start a 3-year journey. Like, I can't think 3 days in the future ahead of today. Like, how am I going to start a 3-year process? Which is what the clinic was telling me, it was going to take. And you can't think about that when you're in that place. So letting go of all that, like, how's it going to happen? I don't know. I don't care. I know it's going to happen. It was more of a feeling, and going in that
But
place in my mind and heart.
were you able to uh see and feel that place that you were going to? Like the finish line, were you able to like see it and feel it and taste it and touch it?
I did. I actually felt and saw. I felt the warm sunshine. I saw the sunshine. I saw the outside, the nature that I was standing in, like nearly a year, um, before I experienced freedom from methadone, standing in the sunshine, feeling the warmth, feeling the gratitude, feeling the freedom, feeling the weight of this off my shoulders. It it was a vision that I had, and then like a year later, it's what happened. Like, I felt the sunshine penetrating through my cells in my body and calming the um the withdrawals, every cell in my body screaming out, just like in agony and suffering and you know pain, discomfort, no peace. Like, the sun reverberated through my cells in my body and gave me peace and calm. And I realized, like, wow, I remember this from my vision like a year ago, and here I am now.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it was a very real place that I found, within myself, and then I attached to that, and then it's like it just pulled me there. I didn't have to figure out the how. The how just happened for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like if you can just get some glimmer of the vision of like where you're going, like what that finish line is, if you can just kind of get a vision, a little, you can kind of just see it, even for a
A
moment.
glimpse, just a
Yeah.
glimpse. Yeah,
Yeah. Then then you know where you're going, and it's like whatever you have to do to get there, it's gonna be worthwhile. Um, I love that movie, Shawshank Redemption. You guys see that movie? So he's in prison and he's in this like horrific conditions of like physical abuse and emotional and psychological, and it's like kind of like basically like hell is where he is. And there's this part where he goes like he's like, one day I'm not going to be here. You know, there's this town and little town in Mexico, and I researched it, and I'm just gonna be there, and I'm gonna be like fishing and just retired and on the beach and enjoying my life. And then I forget the other guy's name, Morgan Freeman. He's like, what are you? He thought he was insane. You know, like, what are you talking? You're in prison. Like, how are you going to do this? Not, it doesn't make any sense. And then every day he just like chips away like a little bit. Every day, like a little bit chips away, you know, at the wall. It just chips away like a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And then one day, you know, it's like behind the poster. And then one day they just like go in his cell and like no one's there. He's gone, you know. And there's that great line where it's like Andy Dufresne, who crawled through, was it like 300 yards or something, 300 yards of shit and piss and came out the other side. And then you see him in the last scene. He's at that. He's the very thing he envisioned. He's there. You know, he's at the beach and he's doing his thing. And his friend comes. Oh, his friend comes to visit him there and stays with him. And I thought that was a great example of like if you can if somehow if you can like get the glimmer of like where you're going, you can kind of feel it. It'll sustain you to like move through because you know obviously with addiction, um, depending on the level of the addiction, the withdrawal is painful. You know, on a lot of levels. So, but if you know where you're going, it'll sustain you to move through
Yeah.
the addiction because you
Yeah.
know, like, you know, this is where I'm going to end up.
That was my experience with methadone. Like come from the time I went to zero, I had withdrawals for like a year and a half after that day. And there was still no um there was no turning back. There was no other option. There was no urge to do anything to quill that withdrawal. It's like I knew what was on the other side. Like I felt the freedom already. Um I knew there was a better day and that's where I was headed no matter what.
Nice.
It's you guys are making me think a lot. You're helping me remember like in AA they talk about the importance of just coming to the meetings and kind of
Mm.
osmosing the energy from those that have gone before.
Mm.
But that also really reminds me of why I invite Jesus into my heart because I feel like he has gone before as like a role model and has like a spiritual energy that I actually need um to like grow like him, you know, like to me that's kind of like nature is exchanging information, you know, like when one part of nature needs something another part gives that nutrient, you know. And so I think that that's why prayer is so beautiful, that if you can come to that humility enough to say, God, I need help, you know, which is really a challenging, you know, to do sometimes for our ego, but it's so essential to recognize that, you know, as a human, we need help sometimes. But um especially because I one thing I find amazing about the human experience is that the range of experience like available to us here is seems really large, you know, like in the depth of addiction you feel so horrible and disconnected from God. It's hard to describe to people who haven't experienced that. Likewise, like in a state of joy or ecstasy, like with your union with God, you're like on a whole different level. And sometimes the space between that is rather vast. And so it can be so helpful to reach out and say, hey, people that are up here, like give me a little bit of help. And to me, that's really natural. You know, that's not like weak. That's actually almost required, you know, like
Yep.
nobody exists alone, and so kind of coming to understand that to me just can really quicken that process because down here can seem
Mm-hmm.
very far away from up here without that assistance. And to me that's what Jesus Jeshua wants to do. He's like, we're helping, you know, anybody who wants, you know, our energy, our frequency, you know, link up with us in heart and mind, and then we can touch, and then I can pull you here more easily.
Absolutely.
100%. Yeah, and that's why
Yes.
on the earthly plane, you know, having a coach or a mentor or somebody that like, you know, you can get that glimpse through them. you know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and feel it. And then it
Mm-hmm.
gives you the confidence to move towards it,
Mm-hmm.
and move towards it,
Mm-hmm.
move towards it
Mm-hmm.
consistently.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to touch on something Jacob said too, because this whole thing with choice is really interesting. It's like there's this idea that having a lot of choices, creates more freedom. And um, the more I'm feeling, the more I'm feeling into choice, it feels like it's actually mostly of the ego. This whole idea of like, I want to choose, I want to be the one to choose. It's my choice, my choice, I choose. But it's like, first of all, do you really want to be the one to choose? That's the first thing. It's like to really kind of go deep into that. Like, do you really want to be the one to choose? And then, secondly, like, is it really your choice? You know? So things start to become more simple when you start to like tap in. Like Jacob was talking about, like, for me, he said, like, for me, there was no choice. This is where I'm going. There's no other options, and that kind of clarity is like really, really powerful. And this is where it's like, not my will, but thy will, not my will, but God's will, you know? I was actually just listening to, it's actually kind of a beautiful thing. Russell Brand was talking to Tucker Carlson about his baptism, and his like movement into this connection with Jesus. And Tucker Carlson was saying, why did you why did you choose to get baptized, or why did you choose to talk about your relationship with Jesus, or something like that? And basically, Russell, he gave a longer answer, but there was this point where he said, well, I didn't choose. Christ chose me. You know, it's like, that's true.
Yeah.
It's like it's like there's this place where um
Mm-hmm.
there's just no more choices. There's only one way to go. Now, there's always it's kind of like you can sort of like go there real slowly, or go there kind of kicking and screaming, or trying to fight it, or like, you know what I mean? You can definitely slow down the process. But it's like there's only really one choice, because it's the choice is just to um it's to live in the truth, and to live in the truth of who we really are, and to really and be that and express that in the world. And everything that is not that is just going to have to fall away. So I think that's really powerful to kind of feel into. But I think there's these stages, and we were talking about the stages of consciousness. David Hawkins, the stages of consciousness, and there is a stage where, like, feeling like you have a lot of choices it feels like empowering. But there's a stage, I feel like, above that, where it's like the most powerful place is the place of no choice. Krishnamurti called it the choiceless awareness.
And
And
like surrendering,
yeah, surrendering to that. And
right?
there's tremendous clarity in that. And
And then
people also talk about like boundaries and like all that. That takes care of all that. Because then you're just really clear, like, no, that's not an option for me, you know?
and so in my case, I had to suffer to get there, to that place. I had to suffer tremendously and be broken to get to that place of surrender. But would you say there's another option? Would you say that you can realize that and choose that instead of going into that suffering?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that we do. Suffering is the way that we generally open and awaken in consciousness. I think that's generally how it works, which means that, like, we don't suffer in vain. Like, it's not just because, like, someone's trying to punish us or hurt us or hates us or is trying to make our life difficult. It's like the
To
suffering,
open.
yeah, it's a call to attention. You know, the suffering is like, hey, you're going the wrong direction. You know, try to, shift it more to the right or the left or whatever. And we're like, no, the ego's like, no, screw off. I do it my way. And it's like, you're going the wrong. So then the suffering will just like increase until when you say I, it's really like the ego. The ego gets broken, and the ego is like, okay, like, I give up.
I'm done.
Like I thought I could do it all myself and I got it all figured out. And it's like that humility, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like when you get like broken open, that's when the light can shine in, you know?
Yeah.
I think also when you realize like one thing I love about God is like if he's whole, you know, like he requires all of us because he is whole, you know, and that's like holiness is like total undivided self, you know, you're not in conflict between this choice and that choice, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
God is whole. And so seeing that, it makes it more just like that surrender natural rather than like, I can't surrender to God, which is the ego, you know. But the more that we see that, I mean, there really is no choice. Like God is this whole universe. Like where
Mm.
is the other except in our imagination, you know? And that imagination of separation is the ego. And that ego seems to hold on very, very tight to its ability to choose something else until we realize or let that go. So it's very interesting. Agree with you on that choice understanding. It's deep. It's great to choose until you see that there's just one choice, love, or the love is the highest choice in God's
There you
name
go.
and your own name.
There you go. That's a good way of saying it. There's just one choice, love, right? But
Ultimately.
then it becomes then the mind goes, well, what is love? And like the mind, you know, there's a lot of misunderstandings out there about like what love is and how to, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like there's these deeper. That's like its own journey, right? Like it sort of is the journey. It's like the journey
Mm-hmm.
of deeper and deeper and deeper into what love really is and what it isn't.
Yeah, I think that that's our personal journey with the heart because love speaks through our heart. Each of us has a hotline to it. It tells us what to do. And you know, we come to find that as we come into devotion with it and want it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so hi, this I'm
Hey,
Godfrey. I'm a
Godfrey.
new guy. Hi. Um, so I'm in a position where I'm not suffering, but I have lots and lots of possibilities. And I'm feeling that yeah, the heart is involved, but maybe it's really difficult for me to stay in one place. And so I'm one, do one thing, one like I don't know, singing exercises, for example. I'll lose enthusiasm after a little while, as my students do. So I'm just wondering if there's, yeah, I think the one thing that really gets me is, I think, more in the gut, actually. It's more that I need help with it every day. And I guess there is suffering. Yes. Yeah. There's definitely suffering there because what I'm what's really pulling me through over the several years and is consistent is men's work. So I'm finding myself losing my temper quite often, or at least shouting more than I would want to with my family. And so um yeah, so I'm finding, I think that, yeah, you're right. That's how you find your kind of heart's desire, or um is through suffering. Yeah, actually that's correct.
You have to be
Yeah.
aware of it. You have to find the awareness.
Right. And then turn the other direction.
Yes, and then you have to choose. Right.
Yeah. Repentance, or it means turn around.
Yeah, I think there is this sense that as relationship with God deepens, there's this sense that everything is happening for my benefit, even when it looks like it's not. You know, like there's that relationship deepens of that kind of realization. So I say that to say that yeah, suffering is if it's there for a reason.
It's an opportunity to grow.
Again, it's there to point us in the right direction. It's a call to attention.
I feel like it calls me towards God because I realize in my suffering, I'm perceiving myself alone, without God as my source. But that's not true, right? Because I didn't create myself.
Yeah.
So that suffering reminds my mind to redirect towards God. I have a creator. He's
Yeah.
watching over me. He's guiding me. He wants me to be free. I'm safe. I'm at peace. How can I act from that place?
Nice. Yeah. Suffering, if you think about what is the cause of suffering, what's the root cause? It's separation, right? It's the illusion of
Yeah,
separation and
trying to do it
division.
alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you create yourself?
No.
No, I just created the image of myself, but not my actual self.
Go ahead, Brandy Lynn, and then we'll go to a question on the chat after that.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hey,
Um, I addiction in relationships is a big thing. As I've grown in my relationship to God, wanting to help people, wanting to share that love that I've been so graciously bestowed and share it to help, right? However, I had to come to terms with I am not the savior. I am not here to save you. I am not here to be a replacement for that source. I can help lead you to in the right direction and provide you these resources and connect you and show you with behavior and show you. However, there is when love for myself and sanity and health begin to become jeopardized in order to extend that to you, my partner, that I should be able to rest and relax and find comfort and security in, um, that's when boundaries are super important. Um, and
mhm.
sometimes you've got to let those loved ones go about their journey and give that to God and let them have the choice on if they will reach out to God or not, because you cannot be that substitute. We are human beings in this life form, that are expressions of God's source. But so I guess personally, I've had to make some adjustments on the type of relationships I entertain and what my worth is and what I want to exemplify in my relationships and in how I can have success in my relationships. And that's been a difficult journey, and I've been finding comfort in peace in having source or God be my relationship for right now until or maybe not until, and I'm okay with that. Um for once, I think I'm choosing myself and God over those external relationships to feel that desire of connection.
Mhm.
And 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 I don't think I could ever go back to a relationship where somebody doesn't have that perspective on God's source either,
Yeah.
because without that we can't grow. And I guess that's just been my experience when it comes
Mhm.
to addiction and relationships, which can be its own addiction in of itself, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's like the
Mhm.
sugar. That's like the sugar. Like, no, there's no room for that. It's not an option.
Yeah, so a couple of things. I think it's a great topic you're bringing up. Um, I think there's definitely a learning curve for all of us with this.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, I'll tell you what I learned about this. So basically, I'll never, when it comes to a spiritual journey, I'll never not help somebody that wants to be helped. So I'll always help somebody that wants to be helped. If they truly want to be helped, I'll always help them. So I'll get back to that in a second. But that's the first thing. Second thing is a lot of people don't really want to be helped. So you don't want to try to help someone who doesn't want to be helped because there's a lot of people that do want to be helped and your energy isn't, you only have so much energy and time in the day, you know? So a lot of people put a lot of tension on their brother or their mother or their, but if they don't want to be helped, then it's not their time, you know? And the reality is they probably have to suffer more, like we were just talking about, before they really start to open up to be receptive, you know? So I always help anybody that wants to be helped if they truly want to be helped. And I don't help anyone that doesn't want to be helped. That's the first thing. Now, the second thing is if somebody wants to be helped, it doesn't mean they should be your boyfriend or your partner or your husband. This is very important. I had to learn this as well myself, right? So with that relationship, there needs to be a reciprocity of energy. You'll help them sometimes, but they'll help you just as much as you help them. It doesn't always be in the same way. It could be in like different ways, you know. So you're taking care of each other, you're helping each other. And um if you're just helping somebody, like if someone's in, like, let's say they're in a drug addiction or something, right? I wouldn't recommend having them as a boyfriend or as a partner or husband, right? You can help them. It's great to help them. But yet that distinction is like important of like that's not the right role for them in your life, you know? And yeah, that's that self-worth of like, yeah, you're ready for that. You deserve that now because like you're a child of God, so you deserve to be treated with love and, you know, um and take it being taken care of and supported. And there's like there can be kind of like, this, I don't know if you guys know this term trauma bonding, where it's like you see somebody that's something connects you to them because there's a trauma that they had that you have. So you're in this kind of like trauma bond thing, and then you keep repeating the same trauma, and it's not healthy. But this is what a lot of relationships are based on, right? So now it's like this thing of like, yeah, this is what I'm worth. This is the self love I have. If anything's possible, what am I called to create in a relationship? These are the things. Getting specific, getting clear. Like these are the things that I want to create in my relationship. This is what God's calling me to in my relationship. You know, and then if you get clear on that, it will come into being. It will come into being. And forming that relationship with God is primary. So you're doing the right thing because the man is just going to be imbued with that light that's the relationship between you and God, or the woman, whichever case it is for whoever, right? But like that relationship um will be an expression of the love you have with God because that came first, you know? So yeah, you're on a beautiful track and it's going to be great to track the journey here with you. And I know that you've had some difficulties in that realm in the past, but I feel like that's over. That's in the past, you know? Yeah. But that clarity, that distinction is really important of like, yeah, it's great to help people, but not in that realm, you know? Yeah. All right,
That's great.
Gio.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention something. So one thing that I realized that I'm kind of more in touch with is, the effects of pornography on young men. I like I said, I have a TikTok and I make a lot of videos on self-improvement, things like that. And I was somebody who, when I was younger, I had a pretty bad pornography addiction. And luckily I've worked on it and I've made my way through that and I got over that. But the thing is, I think I've kind of realized with addictions, there is this drive for short-term gratification. And, in life, you have two things. You have long-term gratification, which is, having a fulfilling life, having the things in your life that make you happy, quality relationships, those different types of things, right? But then there's also things that are very short term. And I think that's what addiction is, because addiction is a quick fix. When you talk about like drugs, it gives you it kind of hijacks the dopaminergic, reward system in your brain. And also things like pornography also, which, evolution rewards us, for reproducing, right? So you get this quick fix of, your brain telling you, oh, you're reproducing, so we're going to give you this pleasurable chemical soup in your brain. We're gonna give you this reward, and it's a very quick fix. And I think the thing you were talking about suffering, and I think the thing is that a lot of people go towards addictions because they don't want to face the suffering. They can't, instead of actually going through the suffering, which is what is necessary, because you have to go through that suffering to realize what you need to actually change in your life. You need to face that suffering to realize how to actually create that long-term fulfillment, how to actually create fulfillment in your life. Instead of facing that suffering, people go to the quick solution because that's the easier thing to do. The easier thing is to watch pornography, or is to do the drug, or is to eat the donut, or whatever the addiction is. It's always this quick fix. And then the reason why it's addictive is because instead of facing that suffering again, they keep going back to it because that's the easy thing, and their brain starts to associate this with this pleasure, this escape from their life. And I think that's the biggest lesson with addiction, is that you have to allow yourself to live in that suffering. And it's not going to be easy, because that's why there's like withdrawals, and that's why there's pain when you have to move away from that addiction, because now you're faced to face the things in your life that you haven't changed, or face the things in your life that need to be changed. And you're not giving yourself that easy escape anymore. But that's what you need to do. You need to be in that suffering so you can actually, because that's God telling you, like, hey, there's some things that need to be changed here. It's like when you have a chronic pain or something, you have something in your body. The reason why you have those pain receptors is for your body to tell you that there's something wrong. If you feel pain in your knee, it's not because like your body's just torturing you. It's because there's something wrong with your knee, and you might need to go to the doctor, or you might need to do some exercise, whatever it is, right? You have pain in your body. It's your body telling you, hey, there's something wrong. And it's the same thing with when you have suffering in your life. The easy thing to do is to go for that quick fix, is to get
Mm-hmm.
that cheap dopamine. The hard thing to do is actually to make the changes necessary to change your life, so you have that, because I like to believe that the natural state of human beings is to be in a fulfilled, content state, in that connection with God. But what happens is that we get pulled away from that. And, there's these things in the world that are very cheap fixes to, and a lot of people stay in that suffering for long periods of time. They actually prolong that suffering because they don't do the actual necessary changes. They just chase this cheap dopamine, right? And I think that's like a really important thing, is that a lot of people, and also too, this is another thing I wanted to mention too, but a lot of people also, they have a lot of shame, with these addictions as well. And a lot of times if they relapse, they go into a place of shame and guilt, and that actually causes them to relapse again, because they're, as you were saying, it's almost like law of attraction. So it's like they go into this negative state of shame and guilt because they just relapsed, and now they want to relapse again because they're staying in that like lower vibration of like, oh, I'm so bad, I'm a terrible person, so I actually deserve this addiction. Like, this addiction is part of me. I actually am identifying with that. And I think that's a
Mm-hmm.
key word, is like identify. Like, if you identify with that addiction, then you're going to keep relapsing. And every time you relapse, you're going to think, oh, I'm such a bad person. And like, I deserve to do this again because that's who I am. Right. But the truth is that's not who you are, because your natural state is already abundant. Your natural state is already fulfilled, is already content. So you don't need to rely on this external thing for happiness. You don't need to rely on this cheap fix to bring you the joy that's already within yourself. But again, like, it's hard to do that because there's so much shame and guilt and so much negativity, and sometimes also, the people that you attract when you're in that state also can be negative as well. So I think that it's very hard because you have to start to identify with something that's different. Like, you have to start identifying, I'm not somebody who watches pornography, or I'm not somebody who does heroin or alcohol or any of that stuff, right? I'm not somebody who eats these types of foods, right? And the moment you start changing your identity, and you start to realize that there actually are deeper things in your life that need to be changed. When you actually start to realize that, and start to change and start to shift your identity, I think that's the difference of when people actually start to see changes, because they're not stuck in this shame that actually keeps them where they are. They start to formulate a new identity about themselves, that they realize that they don't have to rely on this thing, this cheap source of dopamine or whatever, to get this escape. They can actually find that within themselves, and they have the strength to move through the challenges in their life that can actually create that fulfillment.
Nicely said, Gio. Oops. Godfrey, go ahead.
You're muted, Godfrey.
You're on mute.
Yeah, what Gio just said was like, oh wow. So all right. I I was I'm still ashamed. So I was one of those guys who was violent to my partner. And that was an addiction. And for sure that put me in a, I'm a bad person, how dare I hit my partner, my female partner. Um and that was so shaming. Like it took me years to get out of that. And I was surprised that I would, you know, they they wouldn't arrest, I thought I would be put into jail, and all that. Um, it was bad. But yeah, I got out of it through therapy, and yeah, that shame lifted, and then I didn't have to do it anymore. Actually, I think what really got me out of that was I yeah, completely changing, completely distracted. I got into the Gene Keys with Richard Rudd in England. I got on this Zoom
We love
retreat thing.
Richard.
Yeah, Richard Rudd was amazing. So I did a Zoom retreat for a whole year, and we went into the profile and everything. And I didn't do it because of my problem, but I did it because I wanted to, I don't know, generally improve myself. I'm not quite sure, but like, just curiosity. Sarah was into the Gene Keys at the same time, and it's called embracing your purpose. So it just took me completely out, you know, of left field, and yeah, and I looking back, and I thought, oh, wait a second, it's been months and months and months. Wait, it's been 6 months. It's been a year. So yeah, that was a cure for me.
Hmm. That's interesting. You bring up something very interesting around shame and around forgiveness. Because I think there's this idea of like wanting people to feel shame. We talked, remember a couple weeks ago, we talked about David Hawkins' levels of consciousness, and shame and guilt are some of the lowest vibrational levels of consciousness you can be in. So there's this thing of like wanting people to feel shame and guilt for what they've done and kind of like stay in that place. And it does seem like someone who's in that place is actually a lot more dangerous than someone who's not in that place. You know, if you have a very low sense of self-worth and a very low sense of self-worth, you're gonna um, be a more violent person than someone who has a great sense of self-love and a great sense of self-worth, a high sense of self-love and a high sense of self-worth. So that brings us to forgiveness, you know, and the power of forgiveness, which I think is the technology that Jesus taught. Will can talk about this as well because he's got some things to say on this. But I think that's the primary technology that Jesus gave that's like particularly unique to his teaching and pretty radical, you know, a radical level of forgiveness. So it's like to forgive yourself for the things done in the past is actually the way to break free of those things they've done in the past and ascend to, you know, the the higher version of yourself, you know, to be reborn, to be born again, anew. And I think people don't always get that, you know, because we're very into this like you have to be punished and punishment and all this stuff about punishment, you know. But I think it just keeps people stuck in a loop that forgiveness actually allows. Now, if forgiveness includes accountability, so let's make that clear. So the forgiveness with accountability um, that allows you to ascend, you know, into this these higher levels of conscious and awakening, and I think being able to see that in other people too gives them the opportunity to ascend to those higher levels of consciousness and awakening. So there's something about this life about I would say like what I realize is you have to continually let go of the old. Like continually just let it go, let it go, let it go. Like, and it's like really every moment, you know, even what happened 5 seconds ago, like let it go, you know, and just totally be reborn again and again and again and available again and again and again. Okay.
So, there's one. Can I come in here, or do you want someone else to come in?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So it reminds me that so the question for me is, what is the shadow that is keeping you doing that? You know, what is the belief in? Yeah. So that shame is, you know, that loop thing. Um, I'm such a bad person, and then you're just so bad that you know, that addiction
That you do bad things because bad
that you
people
do
do
bad
bad
things.
things.
So, but then to get out of that, I guess is to find out what is the belief about myself that makes me believe I am a bad person, like I'm not good enough, or something like that. And so, if I can address that belief somehow, like, um, well, what is the sorry, what is the evidence for I'm not good enough? Okay, I'm not good enough because I'm violent, but what are the other things? What are the other aspects of myself that are good enough? You know, like, I don't know, I care, or you know, I think what for me, what got me was that I was violent because I wanted to control my partner. I cared for her so much. I even said that I cared. I'm caring for you, and I'm holding her wrist. It's like, yeah, right. But so I cared in the completely wrong way, right? Um, but there's that care part. Okay, so maybe I should find a way of caring in a different way, and maybe that is the route out of the addiction.
Nice. Yeah, we'll follow up on that. Let's go to Brandy Lynn.
I think it's really important to start with forgiving yourself first, for putting yourself in situations around people, places, and things, because the pain, the suffering, you're like, oh, whoa, don't want to do that again. Doing that is complete insanity. So, as much as my heart calls to this person, as much as I feel a connection, to this person, there are boundaries, and setting proper boundaries of what's acceptable and not accessible, or what's not acceptable, or, and what's not acceptable in any kind of relationship, friendship, intimacy, needs to be established. And I think the more that's established, the more the other people kind of get the message. Oh, hey, I guess I can't act like that. I guess I can't do that. I guess I can't say that, because I see the effect of that energy that I put out. It's physics. In the same way, as you begin to love thyself and connect to source and understand what's acceptable and not acceptable, you begin to mirror that in the people that you bring in your circle, they're feeling the same way. And so then you build a circle where they keep you in check, and you keep yourself in check, and you keep them in check, and you
The
guys
circle,
are right.
like this.
Exactly. We thought this, it's beautiful, beautiful. And so the guilt and the shame is there, yes. It creates a perpetual cycle of that kind of energy, just that circle, right? So when you realize that, okay, so you got this being, I'm a being, you're a being, and you find yourself Godfrey, if it gets tension raised, emotions raised, it gets crazy, right? You guys are feeding off each other. You're feeling guilty. She's feeling awful. She's probably doing some violence herself, because it's not just a one-way street and things are getting crazy. If you both are doing your work, you can say, this is toxic. It's not right. This is not the energy that we should be in. This is not creative, positive, creative energy. And we got to do our work, whatever that means, on whatever level that means. If it means going back to basic and you're by yourself and you got to sit in timeout for a couple years and regroup your responses and your reactions to triggers and things that I mean, and these are things you've probably learned from your parents. It's probably stuff you've learned from your environment on how to respond. It becomes nature. So now you are in a process of rebuilding your nature and what that looks like. And to take accountability for thyself, like, don't feel guilty that they put themselves there as well. And they need to be responsible for the boundaries, the lack thereof that they had that allowed that energy to ensue. And then you take accountability and responsibility for your triggers and how you respond and reacted in a grandiose gesture that created the violence that you're talking of. So as we all continue in this group, we will continue to do our work on an individual level so that we can show up more healthy, not just for ourselves, but in our relationships and those around us and those that we impact and talk to and affect.
Amen.
On a day-to-day basis. So don't hold on to that, sir. And I hope she doesn't hold on to that either, they or them, whomever.
Thanks, Brandon. I want to circle back to this question I didn't get to. I think Steph's not here anymore, but anyway, this question of how to get the mind out of the way. Sorry, wait, hold on. Actually, can't read this. How to get the mind, I'm missing a word here. How to get the mind out of the way, stop figuring out how to surrender. That's my thing. How to get the mind out of the way and stop figuring out how to surrender. Yeah, what a great question, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's the clarity of really seeing clearly that figuring out is not the way. You know what I mean? It's like you just start to really see that more. Like the mind is mind is a very secondary tool, and we've made it like, on our culture at this time, our society, we've made it the most important thing. Like everything is the mind. In fact, when people think of intelligence, they think of someone who thinks a lot. Well, he's so intelligent, he thinks all the time. But
Mm-hmm.
there's so many kinds of intelligence that are deeper than thought, and we're not in a place in our society where they're really honored and appreciated. And it's like you're surrendering basically to the higher intelligence, which is higher than the mind, which is more powerful than the mind, more direct, can see more clearly and precisely than thought, than the mind. So when you really get that, then you're able to surrender, quote unquote, to that, because it's way better, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. Gio says, instead of thinking I'm a bad person for doing this, think that this doesn't serve the highest version of myself, or this does not identify with who I truly am. It's natural to make mistakes and give yourself grace for knowing it was a mistake in the first place and wanting to change. Well said.
Mm-hmm.
Well said. Yep. Godfrey, you want to say something?
Yeah. Also, I think to get out of the I'm right, you're wrong, or thing, um, the mind, as you were saying, and maybe concentrate on what do I feel and where do I feel it in my body. Um, you know, because I mean, with my addiction, which I don't have anymore, but um, it was hurting me as well. It was hurting my body as well as the other person, right? So if I could just focus on what's happening in my body rather than in my mind, because the body doesn't lie, right? The mind can
Right.
lie, the mind can justify and like, yeah, but um, so
I think
yeah.
the powerful thing about the body is there's so many things that are powerful about the body, but one thing is the body is a great gateway to the present moment, because the body is here
Mhm.
now. So to tune into your body is to tune into what's true in the moment, which is what you're alluding to, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
and then I think go back to what I was saying about like this power, this intelligence that's deeper than thought. Like this body has evolved over millions of years, and it has access to the entire universe, you know? It's like we're a microcosm of the macrocosm. So it's like it's all in our DNA. And we're able to, by tuning into our body, we're able to know everything. If we're really like learning how to use the instrument and pay attention and like work with it and understand it, and the thought has its place too. It's not that thought is bad. Thought has its place too. It's just we try to use it for too much. We try to like it's like I think of it as like you have a hammer, you have a toolbox, and you have a hammer. You're trying to use the hammer for every single thing in your house, you know, where it's just used to hit nails, you know. And that's kind of how we use the mind, um, my perspective. Okay, so we're coming to the home stretch. We got a couple hands up. Um, we'll go Brandy Lynn, then Godfrey, then if anyone else wants to share anything, and then we'll close it out. So go ahead, Brandy Lynn.
You can go ahead and give yourself permission to not play in that arena anymore. I will no longer try to control other people or situations that I cannot control. And I'm not here to control. I can only control myself and my response and my reaction. I am going to play in an arena that is of service to my highest version of myself, meaning that I will make a decision to not say what I used to say or do what I used to do or respond the way I respond. And if that means I need to walk out of this situation right now, I'm going to give myself the freedom to open the door and walk right out and allow myself to heal from this trauma and allow myself to heal from this thing that is triggering me so deeply in my spirit that's causing me to respond and react in the way that I'm responding and reacting that I know is not in your best interest or my best interest. So let me take some time and pray and meditate and heal, and I'll come back with a response or answer, or maybe I won't, depending on the situation. But allow yourself to do that and allow yourself the freedom to not have to fix it right then and right there. It might take some time to process through on if this energy is even your own. It could be their energy. It could be the energy around you. It could be influences. Who knows? But you got to take some time when you're feeling that way to just, Lord, please help me through this. Please give me wisdom and advice. Give me clarity to see through this situation and what's going on so that I can make the best choice that I could possibly make for myself. And give yourself permission to be okay with that.
Control is the opposite of surrender. I think that's a really key thing to digest for all of us. Yeah. Egoic control. Okay, Godfrey, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I guess you know, I think we, I think I have to remember that surrender is not weakness.
Yep.
Because surrender is getting close to God.
Surrendering to the higher power, quite literally, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a power.
Yep.
You know, if I'm feeling powerless, surrender to a higher power, then yeah, then I
Yeah.
am powerful. Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right, Gio.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say that I think that idea of surrender is really important because I think what a lot of people try to do in addictions is they try to fight the addiction and they see it as like an enemy, almost like, I'm fighting this addiction. It's like a combat, right? And you're never going to win the fight against an addiction. Like it's an unbeatable fight. And really what you should do is surrender. And when you give yourself the chance to surrender, you actually end up replacing that addiction with other things that are more valuable and that actually give you that true fulfillment versus this short-term gratification. And I think a lot of people, they spend all this time trying to like fight an addiction. And it's very useless because you're it's like what you were saying with that one quote in the Bible. I can't remember what it was, but it's that one where Jesus is like what does he say? Like I can't remember. Maybe remind me.
I'm not sure which one you're referring to yet.
The one you said earlier, it's like don't fight evil,
Oh, do not resist
come
evil.
with good or something like that.
Do not resist evil.
Yeah, it's like do not resist evil, but overcome evil with good. And I think that's exactly like the kind of mindset you need to have with an addiction is that it's not really a winnable battle. It's more so removing yourself from that battle in the first place because the trying to fight something is what creates that shame and that guilt. And it also is what keeps you focused on it instead of focused on other things. And it doesn't give you the faith necessary to actually overcome it because you're just so focused on this addiction, right? When really, that addiction is such a small thing in your life. When you actually look out and you look at your entire life, it's this small thing that you're giving all this attention to. And when you actually remove your attention from that and you surrender and you give yourself the ability to actually focus on other things, you realize like, hey, this thing actually doesn't have as much of a grasp on me as I thought it did. It's just that I was giving it so much attention and I was focusing on it so much and I wasn't surrendering. I didn't have any faith. I didn't have any uh I wasn't trying to focus on the actual important things in my life. I was so caught up in this. It makes it that much easier to overcome that addiction because you're not making that the center of your life. You're not making that the main focus. You're not trying to fight this thing with all your energy. You overcome it by surrendering.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Great job, everybody. Great stuff. Great contributions. Yeah, really appreciate you guys and what we're doing here, what we're co-creating here. Feel free to invite your friends to join us. Feel free to suggest themes that you want to bring forward to the space to explore or questions you want to explore together. We have the Big Glow Retreat, September 28th at our place in Southwest Virginia. You're welcome to join us for that. Got personal coaching and couples coaching. You're welcome to reach out to me about that. We have an event in Charleston, South Carolina, Sunday, a breath work, doing a breath work in Charleston, South Carolina. Excited to kind of check out. I haven't really spent any time in the downtown there. I've heard really great things about it. So excited to check out that town this weekend. We got the men's mastermind group, which is rocking. So let me know if you're interested in anything about that. The Telegram group. So Facebook is, how do I put this kindly? Let's just say I'm not a big fan of it. They deleted one of my posts again today, sharing about the circle. So I like Telegram because like nobody bothers me ever. I can just say what I want, and there's it's easy and free and open, and so the Telegram group is public again. So I'll make sure to share the link next time. But that's where we'll stay in touch between now and then most often. I'll still post on Facebook, but I'm very limited in like posting the things I want to post on there. So the the Telegram group is great to get a part of. And then the replay for this will be in podcast form and on the YouTube channel. So you can share the replay of this. I appreciate everyone sharing like really authentically and vulnerably here. I think that's really powerful. So I appreciate you guys for doing that. And I think that's it. Let's carry this energy forward with us the rest of the week. And see you next Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Peace and big love.
Circle
Peace
up.
and big glow and big love.